The night was quiet on the small Korean island where Hyeonsu lived. The sound of waves crashing against the shore filled the air, and the stars twinkled brightly above. Hyeonsu had spent most of his life studying marine life, and tonight, like many others, he was out late by the water, taking notes for his research project. His cabin wasn't far from the beach, but he preferred being outside, closer to the ocean that fascinated him so much. Hyeonsu adjusted his glasses as he leaned over his clipboard, jotting down observations about the tide pools nearby. He loved how calm everything felt under the moonlight. But just as he was about to pack up and head home, something strange caught his attention, a streak of light cutting across the sky. At first he thought it might be a shooting star, but this light moved differently. It zigzagged erratically, before suddenly plunging toward the sea with a loud explosion. Startled, Hyeonsu dropped his pen and stared at the horizon. Smoke rose from the water not too far away. His heart raced as curiosity took hold of him. What could it have been? A meteor? Or maybe some kind of aircraft? Whatever it was, it didn't look natural. After hesitating for a moment, he grabbed his flashlight and started walking toward the crash site. The journey wasn't long, but it felt endless as his mind raced with questions. When he finally reached the edge of the water, he saw something floating in the shallows. It looked like a metallic pod, sleek and shiny, reflecting the moonlight. Steam rose from its surface, and parts of it were scorched black. Hyeonsu approached, cautiously, shining his flashlight on the object. "Hello," he called out, though he doubted anyone or anything would answer, as if responding to his voice. The top of the pod opened with a soft hiss. Hyeonsu froze, his breath catching in his throat. A figure emerged slowly, stepping onto the wet sand. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. Her skin shimmered faintly, giving off a soft blue glow. She had large almond-shaped eyes that seemed to sparkle like diamonds, and her hair flowed gently even though there was no wind. She wore a flowing garment that clung to her body, almost like liquid metal. Hyeonsu took a step back, unsure whether to run or stay. The creature tilted her head, studying him curiously. Then, she spoke, or rather, made a sound. It wasn't exactly speech. It sounded more like music, a series of melodic notes that sent shivers down his spine. Hyeonsu said awkwardly, raising a hand in greeting. The alien blinked, then repeated the gesture. "A what?" she asked, her voice smooth and rhythmic. Hyeonsu frowned, confused. "What do you mean, a what?" She tilted her head again, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "A grrr," she replied, her tone playful yet enigmatic. Hyeonsu blinked. Wait, slow down. I don't understand." The alien smiled, or at least, it seemed like a smile. Her lips curled upward, and her whole face lit up with warmth. She tried again, mimicking his earlier wave. "Hi," she said, though it came out sounding more like a purr than actual words. Hyeonsu scratched the back of his neck, feeling completely lost. "Okay, my name is Hyeonsu. Who are you?" "Lyra," she answered simply, pointing to herself. "Lyra Hyeonsu," repeated, nodding. "Nice to meet you, I guess. Are you hurt? Do you need help?" Lyra glanced down at her hands, then shook her head. "No hurt. Broken ship." "Broken ship," Hyeonsu echoed, piecing together her meaning. "You crashed here. From space." Lyra nodded enthusiastically, making a sweeping motion with her arms to mimic flying. "Yes. Space." Hyeonsu couldn't believe what was happening. An alien? No. The alien was standing right in front of him, dripping wet and speaking in broken sentences. Part of him wanted to pinch himself to make sure he wasn't dreaming, but another part of him felt a strange sense of responsibility. This being, whoever or whatever she was, needed help. And since he was the only one around, it fell to him to assist her. "Well, okay," Hyeonsu said, gesturing toward the path leading back to his cabin. "Come with me, we can figure things out there." Lyra hesitated for a moment, glancing between him and the wreckage of her pod. Finally, she stepped forward, following him cautiously. As they walked, Hyeonsu couldn't help but notice how graceful she was. Every movement seemed deliberate, almost hypnotic. Even her footsteps left faint glowing imprints on the sand, which faded quickly behind her. When they reached the cabin, Hyeonsu ushered her inside and closed the door. The room was small but cozy, filled with books, papers, and various scientific tools scattered across tables. Lyra wandered around, examining everything with wide-eyed wonder. She picked up a spoon, turning it over in her hands, as if it were the most fascinating thing she'd ever seen. "This is spoon?" she asked, holding it up. "Yes, it's a spoon," Hyeonsu confirmed, chuckling nervously. "Spoon," Lyra exclaimed, laughing softly. The sound was musical, sending pleasant vibrations through the air. Hyeonsu watched her interact with his belongings, amazed by her childlike curiosity. Despite their inability to fully communicate, he felt a growing connection. There was something pure and innocent about her, like she viewed the world with fresh eyes. But as the hours passed, reality began to sink in. Lyra was an alien stranded on Earth, and fixing her ship wouldn't be easy. Plus, there was the matter of keeping her presence a secret. If word got out, chaos would ensue. For now, though, Hyeonsu decided to focus on the immediate task, figuring out how to communicate better and helping Lyra feel safe. By the time dawn broke, both of them were exhausted. Lyra curled up on a makeshift bed of blankets, her glow dimming as she drifted off to sleep. Hyansu sat at his desk, staring blankly at his notes. Everything felt surreal, like he'd stepped into a science fiction movie. Yet deep down, he knew this was real and somehow his life had changed forever. The next morning, Hyansu woke up to find Lyra standing by the window, staring out at the ocean. Her glowing skin had dimmed to a soft shimmer, and she seemed lost in thought. The sunlight streamed through the glass, casting golden reflections on her face. For a moment, Hyansu hesitated, unsure of how to approach her. He wasn't used to sharing his space with anyone, let alone an alien from another world. "Good morning," he said finally, breaking the silence. His voice startled her, and she turned to look at him with wide, curious eyes. "Morning," Lyra repeated, tilting her head as if testing the word. "Light sky." "Yes, light in the sky," Hyansu explained, gesturing toward the window. "It's called morning." Lyra nodded slowly, mimicking his gesture. "Morning," she said again, her tone softer this time. Then she pointed to herself and added, "Lyra." Hyansu smiled faintly. "Right. Morning, Lyra." Breakfast was a clumsy affair. Hyansu offered her some instant noodles, which she accepted eagerly but didn't know how to eat. She stared at the chopsticks in confusion, turning them over in her hands like they were foreign objects. Hyansu tried to show her how to use them, holding his own pair up for demonstration. "Like this," he said, picking up a noodle and eating it slowly. Lyra watched intently, then attempted to copy him. But instead of grabbing the noodles, she ended up dropping them onto the table. Frustrated, she made a low rumbling sound that sounded almost like laughter. Hyansu couldn't help but chuckle too. No, try again," he encouraged, reaching across the table to guide her hands. This time, she managed to pick up a piece of noodle, though it slipped halfway to her mouth. When she finally succeeded, her face lit up with delight. "Click-clack," she exclaimed, waving the chopsticks around. "Fun?" Hyansu blinked, puzzled. "What's click?" She tapped the chopsticks together repeatedly, making a rhythmic noise. "Click-clack, hands move fast." He burst out laughing. "Oh, I see you mean the motion." "Yes." Lyra beamed, clearly proud of herself. Click-clack from that point on. Their days fell into a routine. Hyansu spent hours trying to teach Lyra basic Korean phrases, while she explored the cabin and its surroundings with endless curiosity. She seemed particularly fascinated by ordinary things like chairs, spoons, and even the old radio sitting on a shelf. One day, she accidentally turned it on, causing static to fill the room. Startled, she jumped back, then giggled uncontrollably. When Hyansu showed her how to change the station, through trial and error, they began to communicate better. Hyansu realized that Lyra's species didn't rely solely on spoken language. They communicated through vibrations, body movements, and subtle changes in their bioluminescent patterns. Whenever she felt happy, her glow brightened. When she was confused or upset, it dimmed it sometimes. She would hum softly, producing harmonious tones that resonated strangely in Hyansu's chest. Despite these breakthroughs, there were still moments of frustration. Words often failed them, leading to misunderstandings. For instance, when Hyansu asked about her home planet, Lyra responded with a series of gestures and musical notes that made no sense to him. Eventually, she gave up and simply placed a hand over her heart, closing her eyes as if recalling something precious. "It's beautiful," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Though he couldn't fully grasp what she meant, Hyansu nodded. "I believe you." As the days passed, Hyansu grew more comfortable around Lyra. He found himself looking forward to their interactions, even the awkward ones. There was something refreshing about her innocence and enthusiasm. She saw the world differently, not through logic or reason, but through wonder and emotion. It reminded him of why he'd become a marine biologist in the first place, to explore the mysteries of nature. But despite their growing bond, reality loomed over them. Lyra's ship remained broken, scattered pieces lying abandoned near the crash site. Without proper tools or materials, repairing it seemed impossible. And worse, Lyra hinted at a looming deadline. Through pantomime and fragmented sentences, she explained that her people might send a rescue team, but only if they detected signs of peaceful contact. If they sensed hostility, however, they could destroy the entire planet. Hyansu felt a chill run down his spine. Destroy? Why would they do that? Lyra's expression turned serious. Protect. Safe. But we're not dangerous, Hyansu protested. We can prove that. She shook her head, her glow flickering nervously. Not sure. Rules strict. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on Hyansu's shoulders. He knew he had to keep Lyra hidden until her people arrived or until they figured out another solution. But secrecy wouldn't be easy, especially since rumors about the mysterious falling star had already started spreading among the locals. One afternoon, Ji-yoon, a fisherwoman who frequently visited Hyansu for advice about marine life, stopped by unexpectedly. She knocked on the door just as Lyra was experimenting with the radio again, filling the cabin with strange noises. Panicked, Hyansu quickly ushered Lyra into the back room before opening the door. Hey Hyansu, June greeted cheerfully. I heard about that big explosion last night. Did you see anything weird? Hyansu forced a smile, hoping his nervousness didn't show. Oh, that. Just a meteor, I think. Nothing special. Jion raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Really? People are saying it crashed near your place. Some claim they saw lights coming from the water. It's probably just fish jumping, Hyansu lied, scratching the back of his neck. You know how wild stories get exaggerated? Before Jion could respond, Lyra peeked out from behind the curtain, her curiosity getting the better of her. Jion's eyes widened in shock as she spotted the glowing figure. What? What is that? Jiyoon gasped, pointing at Lyra. For a split second, everyone froze. Then Lyra stepped forward, her hands raised in a gesture of peace. Hello, she purred, her voice melodic and soothing. June stumbled backward, tripping over her own feet. A ghost? A monster? She shrieked, bolting out of the cabin. Hyansu groaned, running after her. Wait, Gion, it's not what you think? But it was too late. By the time he caught up to her, she was already shouting warnings to anyone who would listen. Within hours, whispers of an alien invasion spread across the island like wildfire. That evening, a group of villagers, armed with makeshift weapons, arrived at Hyansu's cabin. Their faces were grim, their torches casting eerie shadows on the walls. Hyansu stood outside, trying to calm them down. Please, listen to me, he pleaded. There's nothing to fear. She's harmless. One of the men snorted. Harmless? That thing isn't human. How do we know it won't attack us? Before Hyansu could respond, Lyra emerged from the cabin, her glow pulsating softly. The crowd gasped, stepping back instinctively. She raised her hands again, this time emitting a low-frequency hum that resonated through the air. Everyone froze, their bodies trembling slightly from the vibrations. She's not here to hurt anyone, Hyansu insisted. She's stranded, just like any of us would be in her situation. To prove his point, he guided Lyra to a villager with a fresh cut on his arm. Hesitant but intrigued, the man allowed her to touch his wound. As her glowing fingers brushed against his skin, the injury healed instantly, leaving no trace behind. The crowd murmured in awe, their fear gradually giving way to curiosity. Though tensions remained high, they agreed to leave Lyra alone for now. Back inside the cabin, Hyansu sank into a chair, exhausted. Lyra sat beside him, her glow dimmed with concern. People scared, she said quietly. I know, Hyansu replied, rubbing his temples, but we'll figure this out, together. And as he looked at her, he realized that despite all the challenges ahead, he was glad she had come into his life. Somehow, amidst the chaos and uncertainty, she had brought a spark of magic to his quiet little world. The days following the confrontation with the villagers were tense. Hyansu knew that while they had managed to avoid disaster for now, the situation was far from resolved. Whispers of Lyra's presence continued to spread across the island, growing louder and more exaggerated with each retelling. Some claimed she was a ghost sent to haunt them. Others believed she was a monster hiding in human form. A few even suggested she was a sign of impending doom. Despite their earlier display of trust, when Lyra healed the villagers' wound, fear still lingered in the air like a storm waiting to break. Hyansu tried his best to keep Lyra out of sight, but it wasn't easy. She was naturally curious and struggled to understand why she couldn't explore freely. Every time she asked to go outside, Hyansu had to explain patiently that people might misunderstand her intentions. At first, she nodded obediently, but as the days dragged on, her frustration became clear. Her glow would dim whenever he said no, and sometimes she would hum softly under her breath, a sound that seemed to carry both sadness and longing. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Lyra sat by the window, staring at the ocean. Hyansu joined her, handing her a cup of tea. She accepted it gratefully, though her expression remained distant. Why scared? She asked suddenly, turning to him. People. Not bad. They're not bad, Hyansu agreed, sighing deeply. But they don't know you. They only see what's different about you, and when people are afraid, they can act rashly. Lyra tilted her head, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. Different. Wrong. No, different isn't wrong, Hyansu replied quickly. It's just hard for some people to accept things they don't understand. She looked back at the sea, her fingers tracing patterns on the surface of the teacup. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence between them felt heavy, filled with unspoken thoughts and emotions. Finally, Lyra broke the quiet. Home same. Hyansu hesitated. He didn't want to lie to her, but he also didn't want to crush her. Hoped. I think every place is different, he said carefully. Some places are more open to new ideas, while others hold on to old beliefs tightly. But I believe most people are good at heart. It just takes time for them to see that. Lyra nodded, slowly, though Hyansu could tell she wasn't entirely convinced. Still, she smiled faintly, her glow brightening ever so slightly. Time, she repeated softly. Okay. As the days turned into weeks, Hyansu threw himself into helping Lyra repair her ship. They scavenged parts from abandoned boats, old electronics, and anything else they could find around the island. Lyra proved to be surprisingly resourceful, using her glowing hands to reshape metal and rewire circuits in ways Hyansu couldn't have imagined. Watching her work, he marveled at how advanced her technology was and yet how simple and elegant it seemed compared to Earth's clunky machines. Their collaboration brought them closer together. Though their communication remained imperfect, they found ways to bridge the gap between their worlds. Sometimes Lyra would use gestures or mimic sounds to convey her thoughts. Other times, she would project emotions through her bioluminescent skin, allowing Hyansu to sense what she was feeling without words. In return, Hyansu taught her more about human customs and expressions, explaining everything from laughter to tears. That one afternoon, while working on the ship's engine, Lyra paused and looked at him curiously. "Why help?" she asked. "Why care?" Hyansu stopped what he was doing and met her gaze. "Because you're here," he said simply, "and because I believe everyone deserves a chance to go home." Lyra's glow pulsed warmly, and she reached out to touch his hand. The contact sent a gentle vibration through his skin, almost like a heartbeat. For a moment, they stood there, in silence, connected by something deeper than words, despite their progress. However, the looming threat of discovery weighed heavily on Hyansu's mind. Rumors about Lyra hadn't died down. In fact, they had grown worse. Ji-yoon, the fisherwoman who had first seen Lyra, had become a vocal advocate for investigating further. She organized nightly meetings with other villagers, urging them to confront Hyansu and demand answers. Though many were hesitant to act, a small group of determined individuals began planning a raid on his cabin. Hyansu overheard snippets of these plans during his trips to the village market. He tried to stay calm, reminding himself that panic wouldn't solve anything, but inside, he felt a growing sense of dread. If the villagers came armed and angry, there was no telling what might happen. Lyra's ability to emit vibrations might deter them temporarily, but it wouldn't stop violence if someone decided to attack. On the night of the planned raid, Hyansu stayed awake, keeping watch by the window. Lyra slept fitfully in the corner, her glow flickering like a dying flame. Outside, the wind howled, carrying with it the scent of rain. The tension in the air was palpable, making it hard to breathe. Just before midnight, the sound of footsteps approached. Hyansu grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside, his heart pounding. A group of villagers stood at the edge of his property, their faces illuminated by torchlight. Ji-yoon led the charge, her expression fierce and unyielding. "We need answers, Hyansu," she demanded, holding up a wooden club. "What is that thing? What does it want?" "It's not a thing," Hyansu shot back, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. "Her name is Lyra. She's lost, just like any of us would be if we crashed here. All she wants is to go home." "And what happens when her kind comes looking for her?" another villager shouted. "Are they going to destroy us too?" "They won't," Hyansu insisted. "They'll only harm us if they think we've hurt her. Please, trust me. Let me handle this." Ji-yoon hesitated, glancing at the others. The crowd murmured uncertainly, torn between fear and doubt. Before anyone could make a move, Lyra appeared behind Hyansu, her glow pulsating brightly. She stepped forward, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "I am sorry," she said, her voice melodic and soothing. "No harm, only friend." For a moment, everyone froze. Then Ji-yoon lowered her club, her shoulders sagging slightly. "Friend," she echoed, her tone softer now. "Yes," Lyra replied, nodding. "Friend." The tension in the air began to ease, though it didn't disappear completely. After a long pause, Ji-yoon turned to the others. "Let's give them one more chance," she said reluctantly. "But if anything strange happens, we're coming back." With that, the group dispersed, leaving Hyansu and Lyra alone once again. As the last torchlight faded into the distance, Hyansu let out a shaky breath, leaning against the wall for support. Lyra placed a comforting hand on his arm, her glow steady and warm. "Thank you," he whispered, meeting her gaze. "You handled that perfectly." Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes sparkling. "Together," she said simply, and in that moment, Hyansu realized that no matter how difficult things got, they would face it side by side. Their bond had grown stronger with each challenge, proving that understanding and trust could transcend even the greatest differences. The days that followed the villagers' raid were quieter, but the tension lingered like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Hyansu and Lyra worked tirelessly on repairing her ship, knowing that time was running out. Though the villagers had agreed to leave them alone for now, Hyansu knew it was only a matter of time before suspicion resurfaced. He felt the pressure mounting with each passing hour, but he tried not to let it show in front of Lyra. She seemed to sense his worry anyway, her glow dimming whenever she caught him staring into the distance. One morning, as they sat together, by the half-repaired ship, Lyra turned to him with a curious expression. "Why so quiet?" she asked, tilting her head. "Thoughts heavy." Hyansu forced a small smile. "Just thinking about everything," he admitted. "About how we're going to fix your ship. About what happens next." Lyra's glowing eyes softened, and she reached out to touch his hand. The warmth of her skin sent a calming pulse through him. "Together," she said simply, repeating the word they had come to share as a promise. "Fix, go home." Her confidence gave him strength, even if it didn't erase his doubts entirely. They returned to work, focusing on the task at hand. Over the past few weeks, Lyra had taught Hyansu more about her technology, how her people used vibrations and energy currents to power their machines. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, yet strangely intuitive once she explained it. In return, he showed her practical skills, like soldering wires and shaping metal with basic tools. Their collaboration created a rhythm, a dance of human ingenuity, meeting alien innovation. As they worked, Lyra began sharing fragments of her world with Hyansu. Through gestures, sounds, and occasional bursts of clear speech, she painted pictures of her home planet, a place filled with vast oceans of liquid light, towering crystal trees, and skies that shimmered with colors beyond Earth's rainbow. She described her people as beings who valued harmony above all else, communicating not just through words but through emotions and vibrations shared between individuals. "It's beautiful," she said one day, closing her eyes as if recalling the memory. "Peaceful, safe." Hyansu listened intently, imagining the wonders she described. "It sounds amazing," he replied, "but I guess every place has its challenges too, right?" Lyra opened her eyes and nodded slowly. "Yes, different, hard, but learn, always learn." Her words struck a chord within him. He realized that, despite their differences, they weren't so unlike each other after all. Both of them were explorers in their own ways, Lyra seeking understanding of Earth, and Hyansu striving to comprehend her world. Their journey together had become a lesson in patience, empathy, and trust. One evening, as they took a break from working on the ship, Lyra asked a question that caught Hyansu off guard. "Why talk?" she said, pointing to herself, and then, to him, "Why sound?" Words. Hyansu thought for a moment before answering. "Words help us explain things," he said. "They make ideas clearer, easier to understand." Lyra frowned slightly, her glow flickering, but not always clear, feelings lost. He nodded, realizing she was right. Human communication often failed to capture the depth of emotion behind words. Misunderstandings happened all the time, even among those who spoke the same language. Yet here they were, two beings from completely different worlds, finding ways to connect without relying solely on speech. "You're right," Hyansu admitted. "Sometimes feelings are more important than words. Maybe your way of communicating is better in some ways." Lyra smiled faintly, her glow brightening. "Both good," she said. "Different. Okay." Their conversation stayed with Hyansu long after they returned to work. It made him reflect on how much he had learned from Lyra, not just about her species, but about himself. Before she arrived, his life had been predictable, focused on research and routine. Now, every day brought new challenges and discoveries, forcing him to adapt and grow in ways he never expected. Despite their progress, the looming deadline weighed heavily on both of them. Lyra had mentioned earlier that her people might send a rescue team soon, though she couldn't be sure when. The uncertainty gnawed at Hyansu, leaving him restless at night. What would happen when they came? Would they take Lyra away without giving him a chance to say goodbye? And what if they misunderstood his intentions, seeing him as a threat instead of an ally? One night, unable to sleep, Hyansu stepped outside to clear his head. The stars above twinkled brightly, reminding him of the vastness of the universe. He wondered if Lyra's people were watching from somewhere out there, waiting for a signal that their lost traveler was safe. Thinking again, Lyra's voice startled him. She stood in the doorway, her glow soft and steady. "I can't stop," Hyansu admitted, turning to face her. "I keep wondering what will happen when your people arrive. Will they listen? Will they trust me?" Lyra stepped closer, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Trust you," she said firmly. "You good, kind." Her words comforted him, but they didn't erase his fears entirely. Still, he appreciated her faith in him. "Thank you," he said softly. "I hope you're right." The next few days passed quickly, filled with final preparations for the ship. Hyansu and Lyra worked late into the night, double-checking every connection and testing each system. By the end of the week, the vessel looked almost ready to fly again. As they stood back to admire their work, Hyansu felt a mix of pride and sadness. Pride because they had accomplished something incredible together, sadness because it meant Lyra would soon leave. On the morning of the final test, Lyra approached Hyansu with a determined expression. "Teach me," she said. "Sing, sing," Hyansu repeated, confused. "Yes," Lyra insisted. "Your voice, music, teach me." Realizing what she meant, Hyansu chuckled nervously. "I'm not much of a singer," he confessed. "But okay, let's try." He chose a simple Korean folk song, humming the melody first before singing the lyrics. Softly, Lyra listened intently, her eyes closed as if absorbing the sound. When he finished, she opened her mouth and attempted to mimic the tune. Her voice came out melodic and pure, blending seamlessly with the natural hum of her body. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful in its own way. Hyansu clapped gently, grinning. "That was amazing. You're a quick learner." Lyra beamed, her glow pulsating warmly. "Sing with me," she said, holding out her hand. For the next hour, they sang together, their voices harmonizing in a blend of human and alien tones. It was a moment of pure joy, free from worries about the future or fears of separation. For a brief while, they existed in perfect harmony, connected by music and emotion. When the sun began to set, casting golden light over the beach, Lyra turned to Hyansu with a bittersweet smile. Soon, she said, ship ready. Hyansu nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Yes, soon. Though neither of them spoke it aloud, they both knew what lay ahead. The repairs were nearly complete, and the rescue team could arrive at any moment. As they prepared for the inevitable farewell, Hyansu reminded himself of the lessons he had learned, that understanding transcended language, that trust could bridge even the widest gaps, and that sometimes, the most meaningful connections came from the unlikeliest encounters. And as he looked at Lyra, glowing softly under the fading sunlight, he realized that no matter where she came from, or where she was going, she had left an indelible mark. On his heart, the day began like any other, with the gentle sound of waves lapping against the shore and the salty breeze carrying the scent of the ocean. Hyansu woke early, his mind heavy with thoughts of what was to come. Lyra's ship was ready, or as ready as it could be, and they both knew her people would arrive soon. The anticipation hung in the air, thick and unspoken, weighing on them. Both. Hyansu found Lyra sitting by the edge of the water, her glowing skin reflecting off the surface of the sea. She looked peaceful, almost serene, but he noticed the faint flicker in her glow, a sign that she, too, was feeling the weight of their impending separation. He approached quietly, not wanting to disturb her moment of solitude. Morning, he said softly, sitting beside her. Lyra turned to him, her eyes shimmering like stars. Morning, she echoed, her voice melodic as always. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They simply sat there, watching the horizon, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Lyra broke the silence. Thank you, she said, placing a hand over her heart. For everything. Hyansu smiled weakly, though his chest tightened at her words. I should be thanking you, he replied. You've taught me so much about patience, about trust, about seeing the world differently. Lyra tilted her head, her glow brightening slightly. See? Same. No, not the same, Hyansu admitted. But maybe that's okay. Maybe it's better this way, seeing things differently, but still finding a way to connect. She nodded slowly, as if understanding. Then she reached out and took his hand, her touch warm and comforting. Always. Together, she said, her voice soft but firm. Hyansu didn't know how to respond. He wanted to believe her, to hold on to the hope that their connection wouldn't end when she left. But deep down, he knew the truth. Once she returned to her world, their paths might never cross again. Still, he squeezed her hand gently, letting her know he felt the same. Later that afternoon, as they prepared for her departure, a strange sensation swept over the island. The air grew still, and the usual sounds of birds and insects faded into an eerie silence. Hyansu and Lyra exchanged worried glances before looking up at the sky. A massive shadow loomed overhead, blocking out the sun. Slowly, a colossal alien vessel descended from above, hovering silently just beyond the clouds. It's here, Hyansu whispered, his voice barely audible. Lyra stood frozen for a moment, her glow pulsating rapidly. Then she turned to him, her expression a mix of excitement and sorrow. Time, she said simply. Together they walked toward the ship, stopping near the repaired pod that had brought her to Earth. As they approached, a beam of light shot down from the larger vessel, illuminating the area around them. Hyansu shielded his eyes, squinting against the brightness. When the light dimmed, several figures emerged, tall, graceful beings with luminous skin and flowing garments similar to Lyra's. Their presence radiated power and authority, yet there was also a sense of calm, as if they meant no harm. One of the aliens stepped forward, addressing Lyra in a series of musical notes and vibrations. Though Hyansu couldn't understand the words, he could sense the emotion behind them, relief, perhaps, mixed with curiosity. Lyra responded in kind, gesturing toward Hyansu as she spoke. Her tone was warm and reassuring, and he hoped she was explaining his role in helping her. After a brief exchange, the lead alien turned to Hyansu, studying him intently. For a moment Hyansu felt exposed, as if the being could see straight through him. Then, to his surprise, the alien raised a hand in a gesture of peace. A low hum filled the air, resonating deeply within Hyansu's chest. It wasn't fact, it felt almost soothing, like a silent acknowledgement of gratitude. They thank you, Lyra translated, her voice trembling slightly, for protecting me, for helping. Hyansu nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Tell them, I'm glad I could help. Lyra relayed his message, and the alien inclined its head slightly before stepping back. The group began moving toward the pod, signaling for Lyra to join them. She hesitated, turning to Hyansu one last time. Go, he urged, forcing a smile. You belong with them. Tears welled up in her glowing eyes, though they didn't fall. Instead, her glow intensified, bathing him in warmth. Never forget, she said, her voice steady despite the emotion behind it. Together. And with that, she stepped into the pod, disappearing inside. The hatch closed with a soft hiss, and moments later, the vessel lifted off the ground, ascending rapidly into the sky. Hyansu watched until it vanished into the clouds, leaving only silence in its wake. For a long time, he stood there, staring at the empty space where the ship had been. His heart ached with loss, but also with gratitude for the bond they had shared, however fleeting it may have been. He realized that even though Lyra was gone, she had changed him in ways he couldn't fully articulate. She had opened his eyes to the beauty of connection, of reaching across differences to find common ground. As he walked back to his cabin, the wind picked up, carrying with it the scent of salt and sand. Something caught his eye, a small object glinting faintly in the sunlight. Bending down, he picked it up and examined it closely. It was a shell, smooth and pearlescent, with a faint blue glow emanating from within. He turned it over in his hands, marveling at its beauty. Suddenly, a soft purring sound echoed in his mind, not loud, but unmistakable. A grrr, it seemed to say, mimicking Lyra's playful phrase from their first meeting. Hyanshu chuckled softly, clutching the shell tightly. I guess some things never change, he murmured, smiling despite himself. He tucked the shell into his pocket and continued walking, feeling lighter than he had in days. Though Lyra was gone, her presence lingered not just in the shell, but in the lessons she had left behind. She had shown him that even in a universe full of unknowns, connection was possible, and perhaps, in some small way, their bond would endure. Spanning the vast distance between worlds, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Hyanshu stood by the water once more. He listened to the rhythm of the waves, letting it soothe his weary soul. Somewhere out there, among the stars, Lyra was returning home. And though their paths might never cross again, he knew one thing for certain: they would always be together in spirit, if not in form.